Hey guys, what is up? It is No Help and welcome back to another video today. If you guys like the video, make sure to go ahead and smash the like button and maybe even consider subscribing for more. Alright, in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the least useful skill in all of old school RuneScape. Now feel free to comment down below if you think there's a skill that's like worse than the one I'm going to be talking about today, but I'm just going to go briefly over most of the skills and talk about why they are useful, and then talk about why the one that I think is the least useful but yeah, let's just get started. So all of the combat skills are obviously a 10 out of 10. They're very, very useful skills used in all the quests, all the bosses, all the slayer, all the combats being HP, attack, strength, defense, range, prayer, magic, and I'm going to even include slayer in here. All super, super useful skills that the game would be totally different without them in there. And yeah, we're just going to go ahead and move right on to rune crafting. Now, rune crafting is also a fairly useful skill. I know there are shops in the game where you can go ahead and buy runes, but without rune crafting, there would be a lot less runes for us to be using in the game. And certain ones like the blood runes and stuff like that are used to charge the scythe, and then to use all the combat spells, to make all the things in your POH. Like, you need a ton of runes in this game, so rune crafting is obviously a very useful skill. Now moving on next to construction as well, very, very useful skill. And it is only useful really in old school RuneScape. Now, pre-EOC or at the start of old school, construction was kind of shitty, to be completely honest. It was more of just like a money sink skill and it had no use until they made the construction update, where now we have the amazing player-owned houses with like the rejuvenation pools. We have the altars where you can switch your spell books and stuff like that, and all the teleport nexuses around the game. Just 10 out of 10, just as much as the combats are useful, I would say construction is useful. Now moving right on to everybody's favorite skill, agility. Now agility is actually one of the most useful skills in the entire game. Agility is used to do all of the shortcuts around the game, used in multiple quests, and as well as without agility we wouldn't have the graceful armor set, which makes our run regeneration just so much better, or we wouldn't have things like stamina potions, because the marks of grace you get from agility are used to make these stamina potions. And honestly, the run regeneration is terrible. When you start a fresh account, you run out of energy so quickly, and every single agility level you get a little bit more here and there. Not the most useful skill in the entire game, but it's definitely up there. Now moving on to herb lore, one of the most useful skills in the whole game. Imagine without herb lore we would not have any potions like prayer potions, super restores, Ceradome and brews, all of those great potions that we use, super combats, even just simple things like energy potions we would not have without the herb lore skill. Just as important as food, I think herb lore potions are just as important as something like a shark, right? Now moving on to thieving, it's not the most useful skill ever, but thieving definitely has some benefits. Getting seeds from master farmers, getting your pharaoh scepter from pyramid plunder, getting blood shards and stuff like that. There's a lot of uses for thieving, especially for Ironman accounts with those master farmers getting the seeds and stuff like that. Also, thieving is a very, very fast skill to get yourself to 99, and it has a ton of cool benefits with it, and you can make a decent amount of money from thieving. So thieving's pretty useful. Moving on to something like crafting or fletching, they are very kind of odd skills in a way where you can lose a lot of money training them, but you can also make a lot of money training them as well. Now crafting and fletching is how we pretty much got a lot of the GP in the game, right? Because a lot of the things you make with crafting and fletching have a decent high elk value, like battle staffs or magic longbows. Once you elk them, they bring raw cash into the game, and without crafting or fletching, there would be a lot less GP circulating around the game. Think about it. That's pretty much the only ways people made money when old school RuneScape first came out, was fletching, especially fletching, right? We'd make our U longbows, our magic longbows, and high elk them into raw cash. Other than that, they have some pretty cool uses for quests and stuff like that. In crafting, you can make black d'hide armor and stuff. I guess fletching, you can make magic short bows, but overall, they're not the most useful skills in the game, but they're still not the least useful. Hunter is an odd skill. It definitely has some uses in it. We can get bird's nest from doing things like birdhouse runs. We can get Chinchampas from Hunter. There's a lot of cool niche things you can do with Hunter, as well as herbivore is a really good way of collecting herbs and stuff like that. It is just like a collecting skill though, and the things that you get from hunter aren't like basically like required. It is a cool skill and definitely has a lot more uses than some skills in the game, but there is better skills. Moving on to mining and smithing. Now mining is debatably a very useful skill. You get a lot of ores and stuff like that throughout the game, which you can go ahead and smith and turn into money, similar to how crafting and fletching works. You can make high alchables with mining and smithing. Mining itself, useful for a few quests and maybe to get yourself some ore or whatever for smithing, but without really smithing being in the game, mining wouldn't have too many uses, right? So mining isn't like the worst skill ever, but smithing, on the other hand, all it's really useful for is making high alchables. I mean, you could say we can make some arrows and bolts with smithing like that, but most of the armor made with smithing is just alked. We don't really make armor to actually use in combat with smithing, which is something that RuneScape 3 ended up fixing. Now, I don't think this would fit well into old school at all, but smithing, in reality, there's a few niche uses like making alchables or cannonballs or arrows or whatever, but definitely not the most useful skill in the game. Now, fishing is honestly one of the more useful skills, in my personal opinion, in the entire game, because you get food with it. Now, without fishing, we wouldn't have a lot of ways of healing. I mean, there are like Ceradome and Brews or Purple Sweets or whatever, but without fishing and cooking, we wouldn't be able to really heal. Now, as being an Ironman account, fishing has been one of the most useful skills on the game for me. Fishing things like carambwans or sharks or anglerfish, some of the top tier food for end game PVM. So honestly, without fishing and cooking, like, we couldn't do high end PVM, right? I mean, we could, but it would be a lot harder. Fishing is also one of the slower skills in the game. Like, it's fairly slow compared to other skills, so it's a prestigious 99 to go ahead and get. And now we also have things like Temperance, which we can go ahead and get the fish barrel from, and just a lot of cool different perks with fishing. So fishing is definitely one of the more useful skills in the entire game, as well as cooking, right? I mean, we can't eat raw fish, so cooking is one of those skills as well, which we definitely need. And it's like, people look at cooking as like being like not a useful skill at all, but we need cooked food in the game for PKing, for high-end bossing, even just for training Slayer. We need some food from here and there. I know a lot of Slayer can be just done by simply using prayer, but like especially bosses and stuff, you need cooking in order to go ahead and do that. I'm going to skip the next one, go right to woodcutting. Woodcutting is more useful in my opinion than mining, because woodcutting can be used for fletching or fire making. There's a few little niche uses that are used with woodcutting, and that's pretty much how a lot of the money, like I said, came into the game. People chopping logs and then turning them into the maple longbows, yew longbows, magic longbows, and high alching them with crafting. Well, you know, putting the string and stuff like that, making bowstring, and then turning it into raw GP. So woodcutting is also a very, very slow and kind of a nostalgic skill to train in a way. There could be a lot cooler ways they could make woodcutting be trained, but it's just simply chopping trees right now. Even in the higher end, it's just chopping, you know, redwoods or magics, and compared to something like a regular tree or an oak tree. I do really like woodcutting, but it's got a few niche uses, like I said, for training skills and stuff and making money, but other than that, just like a regular collecting skill. Now, farming is honestly one of the most useful skills in the entire game. Now, with farming, you can go ahead and farm. There's like 80 something patches in the game. You can go ahead and farm trees or fruit trees or herbs. Now, farming is really cool because you can collect secondary ingredients for herblore. You can go ahead and collect like raw materials for herblore. You can grow trees and cut them for your wood cutting. Honestly, farming is really cool, and a lot of the secondary ingredients can be easily like farmed, right? Instead of having to like go kill creatures with Slayer and getting like 5 limpwort roots, you can go ahead and grow your own. I really think farming, if you've never trained farming, I know a lot of people say they hate farming, but farming has got to be like one of my favorite skills in the entire game. There's so much into farming, and it does take a little bit to learn how to do everything, learn all the locations and stuff like that for all the patches, but farming is honestly like a 10 out of 10 skill. Very, very useful. Now, you guys can see that I skipped fire making. I've come to the conclusion that I personally believe fire making is the least useful skill in the entire game. Now, some people may say you need to light a fire in order to go ahead and cook a fish, but we have ranges in the game. Now, without ranges, it would be a totally different story, right? But since we have cooking ranges, we don't really need to actually light fires ever. Fire making is used in a couple of quests, obviously, like you need fire making levels required for a quest. And then we do have things like the Winter Todd, where you can go ahead and make a lot of money with fire making, but you can also make a lot of money with pretty much every other skill in the game too. Fire making, like the skill in general, where you just light logs on a fire and then eventually produce ashes, that's it. Like there's nothing involved like different with this skill. Like literally from level 1 to level 99, there is nothing different with the skill. Now most people go and do Winter Todd just because fire making is so click intensive, it is so boring, and really does not have a genuine use. Even when you get 99, the skill cape perk acts as a light source, which can be kind of handy, I guess, but you can also just make a lantern or use a candle as a light source, right? So even getting to 99 and getting the skill cape perk, it is really not that beneficial for your account overall. I know a ton of Ironman rush 99 fire making, and that's actually what I did on this account too, because Winter Todd can get you some good starting supplies as an Ironman, but for a main account or for somebody who just wants to go ahead and get a 99, Winter Todd with fire making can be a good and quick option to do so, but you're not going to really see any benefits of training the skill besides getting a little bit of money from Winter Todd. If you just want to light the logs yourself, you will just see negative, like you will just see logs be coming out of your bank. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about fire making. I think they should maybe add something else to fire making to kind of give it more of a use. I remember in pre-EOC, they had this mini game where you went ahead and had to light, I think it was like 12 bonfires across the game. It was kind of like a little mini game that they had for fire making, and you had to kind of keep all of the fires lit at once and then speak to a guy, and he would give you a reward called the Inferno Ads. Now we have something like pretty much the same thing on old school RuneScape. What the Inferno Ads did was pretty much when you chopped a tree, it had a chance of burning the log. Now I know we already have this on RuneScape where you can use the stone on the regular dragon axe and it will turn it into an Inferno axe, I believe it's called. But they gave you this for free back then without having the stone if you went ahead and completed this mini game. You also got this thing called the Ring of Fire and Flame Gloves. Now if you wore those together, they would give you a 5% experience bonus with fire making. Now I know we have the Pyromancer set, right, as well, which kind of replaced that, but I think there could be more activities used with fire making to kind of give it more of a purpose. Do you know what I mean? They could even make like a mini game, you know, similar to like Mahogany Homes where you have to fix houses. They could like have a mini game where you have to make like huge bonfires or, you know, clear a forest, or I don't know what they could do. They could make fire making have more kind of rewards rather than just lighting logs on fire or playing a mass mini game where you just you chop a couple trees and throw it into a fire, right? Like there's no really creativity there with fire making, and it doesn't really have many uses, like a couple quest requirements, and that's pretty much about it. Fire making definitely needs something else in order to get people to train it. Like I know people train it just because of Winter Todd and because it's one of the fastest skills in the game, but it's really not useful at all. Like every other skill in the game that I look at has a genuine use and can be used for making money, or, you know, used for getting extra equipment or upping your content or whatever, you know what I mean? Like crafting, you know, you can go ahead and make armor with it, you can go ahead and make money with it. And yeah, I just wish it was kind of like the same for fire making. They should make a mini game with it or something like that. I don't know what I'm saying at this point, but yeah, fire making is by far the least useful skill in all of old school RuneScape. And if you disagree with me, I'd love to know down in the comments below what you think the least useful skill in old school RuneScape is. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you went ahead and watched the whole video, comment fire making down in the comments. I will catch you guys in the next one. See ya later.